Okay, today we're going to talk about starting from scratch. So if we're using a Vue project and we want to start from scratch, we're going to need Node installed, Node.js. We're going to need the Node Package Manager, Npm installed, and we're going to need the Vue-CLI, which is the command line interface, so that we can scaffold a project. And that's really about it. I'm going to show you how to put that together and run it and get your first project up and running from scratch. So the first thing we're going to need to do is look at Node.js. And this is where you would download it. If you're looking at your terminal, this is WebStorm on my left side. WebStorm, PHP-Storm, they're both wonderful IDEs, depending if you do backend PHP. I have both. Don't get both. There's no need. Just if you use PHP, get the PHP-Storm. If you don't use PHP, get WebStorm. It's a little cheaper. And so anyway, back to where we were. So we want to check our Node version that's on our computer. From our terminal, we just put node-v. And that's going to get our version of Node. I'm using 8.0. There were some conflicts with 8.1 and 8.2 with the Vue-CLI. You don't have to run the latest Node. Just run the 6.11.1 LTS. It's what's recommended, and it meets the minimum requirement for the Vue-CLI installer. You can obviously run what I'm running. You can even run higher as long as it doesn't give you problems. You're safe. You'll see problems arise if they do. It'll show it as it installs. npm, same thing. npm-v. I'm running 5.3. The minimum for the CLI is 3 plus. So I'm good there. If you're running less than that, to get to the latest one, you're going to let's see, easiest way here is just let's look at npm. I'm going to run it. I already know I have the latest, but it's going to be npm install npm at latest -g for global. Some people don't like using the global syntax for npm and for the CLI, and the reason being is that a lot of people like to start a fresh project right from the beginning and ensure that they have the exact latest versions of everything. So you don't always have to use the -g or -global. You can just load it per project. It doesn't take very long, and that ensures that you don't end up with an older version that doesn't compile correctly for whatever reason. Okay, so that'll install our latest npm. From there, we're going to look at installing the Vue-CLI. So if you go to vue-cli for the GitHub Vue-CLI installer, command line interface, you can run npm install vue-cli and then G for global. Again, you don't have to do the global. I do because I'm constantly using it over and over within a day, but I also run the installs on it constantly to make sure I'm using the latest versions. So this is going to install the scaffolding manager for Vue, which prevents you from having to know how to work Webpack and know how to work all the module loaders. And if you're using Sass or CSS, or if you're using JavaScript versions 2015 or ES6, it prepares all that, bundles it so that you can just go ahead and use it without hardly any configuration issues. It's just ready to go right there out of the package. Okay, so once we've got the CLI installed, now we can install a Vue starter. So if you did these all globally and you were basically up to date on everything, you could just start your program and this would be your starting point. So from here we can do Vue init Webpack, and there's a number of different versions. If you look at your Vue-CLI, you've got Webpack, which gives you a full-featured Webpack, and also throws in the option of using the router, the Vue router. You've got Vue Webpack Simple, which does not include the router. You've got Browserify Simple, PWA for personal web applications. You can look at that. We'll get into that eventually. That includes a manifest and setting up icons for scaffolding out your icons and your manifest so that you can run hybrid applications that you can take from the web to your mobile device through the menu on your mobile device's, how do you say this? It runs on the web, but you can put it on the home screen just like an application. But it's not a native application. It is simply a way of making a web application act more like a native application. There is a big push to move to that because there are a lot of applications that don't need to be native. They don't gain any real enhancement. They don't need the graphics optimization. They don't need the native core abilities. And your PWA, your personal web application, can interface with most, if not all, of the device's internal, the camera, the GPS, the storage system, the gyroscopic devices in them. PWA allows you to get in and out of that and use those devices to see other applications or emails or whatever you may want to do. So the PWA is very much like a native application without being a native application. It is still a web application with just a native look and feel and the ability to interact with some of those native devices and systems on your phone or tablet. And then the simple, if you wanted to set up a simple, that would just scaffold out without Webpack and set you up for running a simple single-page Vue application. And then you can create custom templates. But we're going to go ahead and jump back here to where we were. We did Vue, init, Webpack. As if you look up in the instructions, you can put the template name and the project name. So the template name in this case is Webpack. It's our choice. And you can put the project name. If you put the project name, it's going to create a folder and it's going to scaffold out in that folder. Since I'm using WebStorm, my WebStorm automatically, when I start a project, it automatically creates a folder. So when I run Vue init Webpack, I'm not going to want to put a project name. And when we hit enter on our Webpack, sorry, I'll be down here in my terminal, it's going to ask me, do I want to put the scaffolding in the current directory? And it's yes, because I've already created the project directory. So it downloads the template, then it's going to give us, ask us if we want to change some certain features for the package.json file that it's going to create. And that's the project name, the description, and the author. And then it's going to ask if you want to run if you want to just run the runtime unit, or if you want to run the runtime and compiler. You're always going to want to put a compiler in if you're creating modules that other people would use. You don't necessarily need the compiler if you're creating the end result package for your website because it's already compiled. Recompile it, but what it's making sure of is that nothing else needs to compile it later. Because we run hot reloading, it's pretty much given that you're going to want to run a compiler in the system because our hot reloading requires it somewhat. I just recommend leaving it. If you want to remove it, you can recreate your project after you're done and then just run the runtime only. But it's only, they're saying it's 6K lighter. When we talk about frameworks like Angular and React, and we talk about CSS frameworks like Bootstrap and Material Design Lite, the size of those is such that whether we're adding 6K or not adding 6K is immaterial. And if you're trying to go for super lean, I understand. So remove the compiler after you've finished making the project. Just recreate the Webpack system and get rid of that 6K if you need to. But we're going to run it with the compiler just to help with hot reloading. I always install the Vue router because eventually you're going to want it. I'll show you how to use that in future systems, but unless you're making just a single page non-changing interface, the router's almost always used, and it gives you flexibility that you can use even if you don't think of it as pages. It could just be components within a page that you could change out using the router. So I almost always include the router. It's easy to take out if you don't want to use it. So we're going to do the router. I don't do ESLint because I am old school and my semicolons are always in the wrong spot. So it's a pain to deal with the flagging of my semicolons every time I compile. But you should learn it. It's the proper way to learn how to format your syntax for JavaScript. It'll ensure that everything from the spaces are correct. If you do set of parentheses and then your brackets, you need a space in between. So it really does make sure that you conform to a standard. And I just haven't gotten to that point yet that I'm willing to fight it enough to conform. I will. It is important that you do learn, but sometimes it's just not right now. Anyway, so we're not going to do the ESLinting. We're not going to do any testing for this purpose. So no and no. They're end-to-end tests and they're unit testing. So that's it. We've got our CLI installed. It's generated our scaffold for our package. And if we come up and look at our folder directory, the only thing missing from the folder directory now is the node modules because we haven't run the install. We haven't installed our dependencies. So we have everything scaffolded out. It's ready to go. Now we need to run npm install to finalize everything out. Now in WebStorm, it gives me the option as it sees that kind of pop up and do it automatically. But I'm going to do it longhand because this is how you would have to do it in a terminal. So we just do npm install, hit enter, and we let that install. That's going to install all the modules and dependencies that we need for Vue to not only run, but to do a hot module reloading kind of preview. So it changes in real time. It gives us our build so that we can do a final production build. So it'll strip out all your comments, it'll minify everything, it'll package it up properly, and it'll do all its optimizations for delivery. So now that we've got all that installed, we can run npm dev, dev. And that's going to build and start our test application. So this is our test application. We'll go ahead and turn on the inspector for whatever platform you're using, whether it's Firefox or Chrome or Edge or whatever you may be using. You're going to get a fail to load favicon because it doesn't put a favicon in. So if you want that favicon failure to disappear, just toss in a favicon ICO that you may have laying around somewhere in another project, or maybe you have one that's set up for your website. Also, you're going to want the Vue Dev Tools if you're using Chrome, and I recommend it. So even if you don't use Chrome as a regular application, Dev Tools in Chrome give you incredibly helpful insight on your application. So you may want to keep that as a backup. Even if you don't use Chrome regularly, have Chrome on your computer and then install the dev tools for Vue, and that will give you access to the dev tools. So if we come up here and put in Vue, you can see that we can now look at the modules from root to app to hello, and hello is in our components. We've got a hello Vue component. We've got our app component, and then the root being the main JS application. So the Vue DevTools give us a insight into variables for debugging and things of that nature. There is a message that says, welcome to your Vue.js app in our components right here. And that is what you're seeing right here as an example of how they show the data binding. So that gets you completely started. You've installed Node, hopefully. Node.js. You've installed or updated NPM. You have installed the CLI, the vue-CLI. You've run it and picked the appropriate options. You've got the scaffolding in and run Vue init. So now you got Vue init and then npm install, and you have a brand new scaffold out program ready to go. If you were to move from here on to set up your application as as your starter, you can either eliminate the component hello simply by, a lot of people just come back and they just clear out the component. So that gives you a blank component. As soon as you hit save, there goes your component. The image is located right there in the app, which basically what it has done is it inserted the image and then inserts the router component switch out. So that may give you some ideas. A lot of the time you'd want to put in a nav bar here, and then the router would change out the pages, and the nav bar there would be static. So I think I've covered everything. So you've got your Vue router, and if you're looking at a Vue router, it's really two things. It has the index file, index.js file, scaffold out, and it'll give you an example of doing routes. If you want more routes, you simply copy this object in the same way. You do path, login. So that would be the physical path, the URL. You'd give it a name, which is its named path, and let's just say we'd call it login. And then you would give it a component, like login. Now, if I save this, it's gonna throw up a little bit because it doesn't like the fact that we don't have a login component. So we would have to import a login component. Import login from at components, and we call it login. Again, it's going to give us a little bit of a hard time because there is no component login in components. So we would need to create our login component, login.vue, and we could scaffold it out. So we've got a template, and we've got a script, and we've got a style. And we're going to set it to scoped. That means that that anything that we put in our style sheet only applies to this component. So it doesn't. We don't have to worry about our styles leaking out into other components or trickling down to components that we don't necessarily want them to. So that's what scoped does. So now we've got the component. If I save it, let's default export default, and we'll just give it a name. login. Oh, let's see, custom element nav bar. Well, that would cause an error. When I was showing earlier in the app, we don't have a nav bar. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so now when we refresh it, that should go away. Okay, so we've got your router index here. And I'll go through a router. I don't want to go through it at this point in time, but we just set up a secondary route for login. We've got your hello component. You've got a login basic template design. If you were to do this on out, you need a single node. So everything has to tree out in hierarchy from that. You can't have an H1 and an H1 because they're at the same level in hierarchy. You need a single starting node. So you need to wrap everything in one thing, such as a div. Let's see. I think that's it. We've got the app, which we've gone over the template portion of the app, and the script is just giving it a name so that we have these names over here. They actually, the name portion of our export default in our script helps us with the dev tools, because they give us a application name that we can actually use. Router.index we've gone over, app we've gone over. Obviously, here's your style, and this is not scoped, so it's actually able to move away from the component and into other items. Main.js, it's going to have our primary imports, the view, the app, the router, which we put in. Like I said, if we wanted to remove the router, you could build everything in app and remove the router here and remove the router from the primary view component. And that's it. We've got assets, which is going to be the logo that you saw that we removed from the app file right above the router entrance. And static is get keep. Let's see. These are all. This is really it. Everything else outside of your source, other than your index file right here, is what you need to work with. Now, obviously, you may need to work with your index file, but that index file right there is what's actually ported to your dist file. So if we were to build a distribution setup, which I'll show you here, we've got our package.json file. Now, if you're running a command line, you'll run npm run dev, or you'll run npm run build, and those will get you either the development hot swappable, work platform here, or you can run the build, which will give you the optimized compiled unit for distribution. In our WebStorm and PHP IDEs, we can right-click our JSON file and show npm scripts, and you can see that we've got the scripts that are in our package.json file right there. So that's really convenient for if you just don't want to type every single time. I can run my dev right there. It will fail because I've already got it running once, and it won't run two servers simultaneously on the same machine at the same port. We can run our build, which it will run while the developer server is running. So it ran our build, and now we've got a distribution folder. It shoved in our static folder right here. So if you were adding anything like a favicon or something like that, you could put it in there, or a main CSS file, it would include it. And then this index file right here is minimized and optimized, but its source was that index file right there. So if you're using that, you'd probably want to add, the standard scale, resizing, and responsive design headers. So you may want to come back, hit that, and I'm going to use HTML5, And this is Emmet, so I can hit tab, and it gives me a real quick scaffold of that. But it also puts in my viewport for responsive design and scaling on mobile devices, and the XUA compliant. But don't forget, if you do that, to hit your add your starting point, which is app, and it needs an ID of app, a div with an ID of app, and that's indicated in our main JS right there. Our element el is hashtag app, and the hashtag obviously represents ID if you've used any CSS. And that's it. If you guys have any questions or need any further explanation on just the basic startup of a Vue Webpack, I don't know that there's anything more I can add to that. Everything else from here is your imagination and building, and obviously digging through and finding out how it all works. But that's everything that I can explain basically on setting up to move forward. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Like, dislike. I talk a lot, I know. But you know, you can stop it or rewind it or ask questions. Subscribe, please. I need subscribers. Other than that, hope you have a good day, and I hope this gets you started. Bye.